college isn't for men anymore. In fact, I don't think it's for any rational people in general. So I'm a veteran. I was in the military for about 7 years before I got out, and then I went to university in Japan. Why Japan? Just because I liked it and I wanted to go somewhere else, somewhere that was not in the United States, somewhere away from all this shit. This is the reason that I joined the military in the first place, was to kind of get away from home and from my reality, right? I grew up in a pretty abusive household, but I'm not really going to get into that right now. I want to talk about college specifically, and why it's not for men, especially. So, I'm out of the military at about age 28. Yeah, about 28. I moved to Tokyo to go to go to school out there. Now, the first few years isn't so bad, right? It takes some time to realize what these systems are like, and in the beginning, I was just happy to be there. I was just happy to be in Japan, living in another country, and enjoying myself. Just having a good time for the most part. I spent a lot of time out there drinking and sleeping around with Japanese women and hanging out with friends and doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't to my benefit for my future, but so, I was just because of that. The reason I bring that up is because it distracted me from what school was really like, because I was having such a honeymoon period in Japan in the first place. But after some time, I've come to realize, okay, I'm actually starting to take my studies a little bit more serious, especially because I'm reaching the end of my time in university. I'm approaching my bachelor's. I've already got my associates. I'm working toward my bachelor's, and the subject matters are starting to become a little bit more serious when it comes to your projects, what you write about, et cetera, et cetera. And it came to a point in time where I wanted it, like I said, I started to talk about real things. I'll give you some examples. I started to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement being mostly, especially when it came to the protests. It was mostly perpetuating violence and destruction. And I was trying to make a point. It's not like I was saying black lives don't matter or you shouldn't be fighting for rights, right? But what I was saying is it didn't justify all the property damage and all the violence that was happening. And I would talk about several things like this, about how I did another project on why male loneliness, and this was way back in 2022, 2023. No, I say way back, I think that was long ago. Like, that was very, very long ago. No, so yeah, it was around, no, that was even earlier. It was around 2020, 2021 when I was writing about these things in school. And I remember getting so much backlash for these things. Like I said, things like violence and destruction in Black Lives Matter movement, things like male loneliness and male emotional expression for my psychology class, because, I think that's a pretty valid topic to talk about, male loneliness. And other things like unfairness in the courts when it comes to like divorces between men and women. And it's not like I was ever singling out any other group as a problem. I was just explaining men are having trouble with emotional expression. Men are having trouble with things like suicide. These movements are perpetuating violence and destruction. I didn't say black lives don't matter or women are having it easy. I didn't say anything like that. I was just pointing out some facts about things that are happening. And I would always be met with massive criticism from not only the other students, but especially my professors. This is the part that was starting to really get under my skin. Was I thought college was supposed to be a place where you find yourself, where you become who you're meant to be, where you express who you really are, your ideas, and all this bullshit that you've been told about university. And being told by my professors that I'm not allowed to write about certain things because it makes them uncomfortable. This is when things started getting really out of hand for me, especially when I started going in my second half of studying, in my third and fourth year, because I was we were getting closer and closer to writing thesis papers. So I really had to start narrowing down what I wanted to write and talk about. And hearing my professors telling me you can't write about these things, or trying to justify it, like, well, there is a lot of injustices going on in America toward minority groups. That's not what we're talking about. If you want to talk about injustice toward minority groups and blah, 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 then fine. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the blatant destruction and violence that's happening and being disguised as, I'm being oppressed, so I'm just going to commit horrendous crimes against everybody else. Where's the fairness in that? How does okay, my X group is being discriminated against, so I'm just going to cause destruction and commit crime, violence? Like, how is that the answer? How is it like, well, historically these people have been oppressed, so it's okay if they go and just kill people and rob businesses and shut down flip cars in the middle of the streets? How is that the proper reaction? And why are my professors trying to defend those actions as okay? Like, I didn't know what to do at that point, because when I try to bring it up to other professors or like my counselors, they would be like, you should probably, just for the sake of your grade and for, like, to keep the peace between your professors, just do it. That was the answer to me usually, was just pretend, just write about what they want me to write about, conform to their values and morals. Is that what university is? Is that what I'm paying? Is that what we're paying thousands of dollars to go to school for? To conform to other people's ideas? And I just couldn't believe it. It was ridiculous. And I've already suffered with some pretty, like during my time in the military, I'm not going to go into details, but I ended up with PTSD, and I already got pretty severe ADHD. So I'm already very, on edge all the time, pretty impulsive, but I try my best to control it, And there are times where I just couldn't hold it. Like, why are you trying to stop me from writing and speaking my mind? I wasn't afraid to say these things to the professors, and these professors would get really, and you can see disgust, the look of disgust in their face when they're talking to me. And that's when I came to realize I'm never going to make it out of here. I'm not going to graduate if I don't just change and become what these people want to be, kiss their asses and pretend to care about the things that they care about. What are some of the things that they care about? Bashing men. And this is other male professors talking about how bad men are in society and how we've oppressed women all this time and how women need to break out and become themselves. And there are feminist classes in this school. Classes about feminism. There's LGBT classes in these schools. I was just looking online. There are classes that my school offers. I don't know. I just LGBT and then a number, because there's always a number that precedes it. For example, I had Psych 102 or 103 or 201, 202. So there was like LGBT and then a number classification. So they're actually holding courses teaching about LGBT. What exactly? I don't know. But it went beyond that. There was also, there was always there was gender neutral. At least they did gender neutral and didn't allow guys and girls to walk into the opposite sex bathrooms. They at least had a gender neutral bathroom where you could go to, which was just a one person bathroom. I should have just went in there and took my shits, to be honest. Whenever I needed to take a shit, I should have just went in there and shit. But so there were gender neutral bathrooms. There were pride flag things going on all the time. They were always promoting pride and LGBT acceptance and blah, 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 blah. It was all political. It wasn't about education. It wasn't about learning. It was just political. And there was also, it got to a point also, they were at the beginning of classes, when you started a class for the first time in a semester, it was pretty much common practice for everybody in the classroom to state their names and their pronouns. I would state my name and say, hello, this is my name, and I think my pronouns are pretty obvious. I would say that. And some teachers would be like, okay, thank you, but can you say them anyway? And then some other teachers would just flat out just be like, what are your pronouns? We can't be here sitting here assuming. So the teachers, the professors are complete woke lunatic maniacs, right? So and due to my inability to just sit there and just take this stuff because of, you know, a combination of my ADHD and my PTSD, I'm like, no, I'm not I'm not gonna sit here and just act like this shit is okay. I don't want to tell you I don't want to have to pretend like you guys are too stupid to realize that I'm a man. You see that I'm a man. I've got a beard. You know, you hear my voice. You can see what I look like. You can see that I'm not a female. I don't have to say my pronouns are he, him. They're not she, her. As if you could like. It's just. Needless to say, I started losing my faith in the education system, and I started spiraling into a pretty deep depression. You know, because not only were the teachers, the professors, kind of ostracizing me at this point, but so were the students, and the students aren't any better, especially all these younger, impressionable men and women who are like 18 and 19, going to school, going to college for the first time, right? And they're being told things like they're not good enough for being men, or if you're white, you're not right. And I would no shit, for like word for word, had this guy in my class. He was like this 20-year-old white guy from America saying, quite honestly, pushing up his nerd glasses while he was saying it. Like, I'm very ashamed of my heritage. I'm so ashamed to be white and male. And I was like, I was sickened. I was sickened because he's being poisoned by this propaganda that if you're male or white, which I'm not white, by the way, so I'm not protecting whiteness because it's about me. You know, I'm Hispanic, but just to see these self-loathing people hate themselves so much, and realizing that it was these universities that are convincing these men that they're not good enough, that they should be ashamed of what they are, and all these things compounded on me to make me even more just upset that I'm even in this position, that I'm wasting my money doing this. And I end up on my third to my last semester. I had 3 semesters before I graduated and got a bachelor's. I mentally couldn't handle it anymore. And I opted out. I quit. I couldn't do it anymore. And I ended up, as I was in the past, deeply consumed by my addictions. Alcohol for me, basically. Alcohol and sex. I was always out in Shibuya, which is this party city in Tokyo, always getting drunk and trying to bring home loose Japanese women to sleep with, trying to fill the void within me, right? And these situations are out here making it worse. And eventually I can't handle it anymore. I end up losing my visa because I'm not going to school anymore, and I have to come back to the United States. And I'm looked at as some creep, villain, misogynist. I love women, by the way. And I treat women, I don't treat women terribly. Just because I talk about, men being looked at as nothing, and, male emotional expression not being taken seriously. It doesn't mean that I don't take other things seriously as well. Like, I understand women also have difficult things that they have to go through. I understand that life isn't easy for anybody. But I can't speak to what women deal with because I'm not one. I can only speak to what I've dealt with as a man. And for some reason, that's a crime. I can't bring up that men are struggling without somehow being misogynistic, without somehow being racist. I've even been told, like, why am I racist? What is anything that I'm talking about what does male emotional expression have to do with race? And what does worrying about the struggles that men are going through have to do with women, much less misogyny? So here I am back in the United States. I'm homeless because my family isn't doing great either. My family are kind of stuck in their addictions as well. So here I am, a veteran homeless back in my home state. And by the grace of God, I was found by VA representatives, veteran advocates who realize who I am. Well, they don't realize who I am. They just see that I'm a homeless guy, and that they learned that I was a veteran. It's like, hey man, there are these resources you can find. There are these resources where you can find like social workers, and you can help find a place to stay and all that good stuff, right? And I end up finding that, and this is how I end up finding that I've got PTSD and ADHD. I get evaluated by the VA system, and they point these things out. I was like, oh, these things make sense. These make sense because I was very self-destructive, very impulsive. All these things make sense about my life. And I've also come to realize how criminalized that makes you if you're different in your mind. If you're, like, for example, if you're autistic or if you have ADHD, if you're neurodivergent in any way, and you don't follow the status quo, you don't follow like a leader like everybody else, you don't fall in line and agree that because you're a man you're inherently evil, and that because somebody's woman they're just inherently benevolent angels and everything they say must be taken as 100% fact. I reject that notion. I reject that notion that anybody should be taken at 100% at their word without any sort of scrutiny or at least questioning of some sort, right? Not just women, anybody. You can even prod me. Look up these schools, Temple University in Japan, and tell me that you don't see this woke agenda being prevalent there, right? And it really wasn't. To be honest, if you are those things, LGBT and all that stuff, I actually don't care. But when it's being pushed onto me, like, you must accept this, or else you must, if you don't attend these rallies, you must be a bigot and that kind of thing. That never strictly happened. But it was like, you could see it in people's faces. You're not going to the pride thing? Oh, you homophobic? No, I'm not afraid of homosexuals. I just don't care about your sexuality. Like, I'm not going to straight pride rallies celebrating that I'm straight and that I like to fuck women, right? That's my point. Is like, why are we celebrating sexuality? This is one of the things that, like, these self-centered ideas where America's just become this culture of me, my feelings, my identity, my me, this. It's so self-centered, so self-absorbed, so narcissistic. And I'm just supposed to just sit here and act like that's not weird, that's not wrong, that's not a priority. But anyways, because of all that, I've been thinking about it for years, that the reason I'm not graduated right now is because these professors couldn't handle me not conforming to their radical left woke views, right? And brainwashing my friends in the process, which was the hardest thing to watch, is watching my own friends turn around and say, I hate myself for being white and male. And pretending that they care about these things that they really don't. It out of fear of being ostracized by the community. Because they know, if I don't just pretend that I care about these things, I'm probably just not going to pass my classes. If you're a man in this world, honestly, if you're just human and you really care about reality, if you want to have logical discussions, logical ideas, if you want something real, I would avoid universities. I really would. Because all it was tens of thousands of dollars lost for nothing. And I still use my GI Bill, but I was also using financial aid. But the GI Bill doesn't cover for financial aid, so I have to pay all that financial aid back. Which, fine, my responsibility. I took it in the first place. I'm not going to sit here and complain that I borrowed money and now I got to pay it back. But it's just to know, to realize that the system that I was paying into was so corrupt. And I spent so much time and money doing it to find out when it was too late, this was never worth it. And it might be like that by design, so that you're fooled into paying all your money all the way to the end, so you feel like you're trapped in, if I don't finish now, I just wasted everything. But anyways, here we are now. I mean, life's slowly unraveling and getting a little bit better for me now. You know, I still have my issues. You know, like I'm still trying to figure out who I am, what I want to do with my life, what my purpose is. You know, because I've spent so many years, I've wasted so many years chasing things that weren't worth it. You know? And I'm done. I'm fed up with it. And this is why I've, you know, like, this is where I've started to watch this, you know, all these other programs from, like, the men's community, manosphere, like I said before, whatever you want to call it, the red pills, learning what, like, because this is, I've already had this experience, like, this is what life is like, huh? And then I'm seeing from these communities that other men are going through the same things. And I'm like, this is not an isolation. I thought I was crazy. I thought it was like my PTSD and ADHD must make me a weird person. I must be just crazy or stupid or something. You know, like I was going through, like I said, a spiral where I was thinking that I was some kind of like crazy psychopath, or that I was some kind of schizophrenic crazy person, you know? Like that there was something wrong with me. And the world will gaslight you into thinking that you're a bad person, especially in the West. They will, because even Japanese people, when I was going to school out here in Japan, were being brainwashed into these things. I met a 20-year-old Japanese girl who wanted to be called they, them, because they were non-binary. So you passport bros who are running off to other countries, granted, Japan is a pretty westernized country, but if it'll happen there, it can happen anywhere. You have native Japanese people who have never been to America saying that they want to be called they, them, and that they're non-binary or gender non-conforming or whatever the fuck they call it. But anyways, before I end up making this video too long, there's plenty more I want to talk about, but we'll save it for other videos. You know, discrimination against men, especially if you're white. Injustice in the military system, because the military is pretty corrupt too. Injustice in the schooling system, because the schooling system's pretty corrupt. But anyways, until then, thank you for watching.